we have our friends here in town, Peg and Dar, who have been very involved in NAFA for years. NAFA is the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. How long has NAFA been around, Nikki? A lot of years.
1969.
69. So it's one of the very, if not the first, fat-friendly organizations. And NAFA has kind of been revamping itself over the years, and they're very, very, and I know that Peg and Dar have been trying to get a local NAFA chapter here in Vegas. Believe it or not, the city like Vegas did not have a NAFA chapter, which is really surprising because you think of, Vegas really isn't a huge metropolis. Somebody say that word.
What?
Metropolis. Metropolis.
Wait, did
Thank
you hear that?
Metropolis. I got it now.
Is this
but it
girl who
is
mispronounces everything?
Yeah, whatever. So anyway, y'all know what I'm talking about. But so Nikki got involved,
too tight.
and you tell us your position and how it all came about and what's going on with NAFA here in Vegas.
I have been begging Peggy and Darlene forever for me to volunteer because, I mean, I am definitely a fighter for size diversity. I have several personal reasons why that I decided to get into size diversity, and we've been talking about it. And so they decided, let's do it. So I volunteered to be, I am the vice president and secretary of our local chapter, Darlene being our president, and Peggy, she's our advisor. And we're just trying, we're brand new, we're trying to get it really started, try to get community based. So we're doing activism, but we're also trying to touch base with the community so we can have a partnership, because when there's inequality, regardless if it's for race, sexual orientation, your size, gender, it affects all of us, even if you don't realize it.
No, you're right. Yeah.
And you know, we just need to go out there and fight. I joked with my brother the other day. I was like, you know, I started being a size diversity activist, and I ended up being an activist for everything. Because, I mean, you have to fight, especially you have to fight for people that don't feel they have a voice.
Right.
And some people think that activism is just being out on the street with a picket sign and being very militant. And it's not true. I mean, I'm not very outgoing, so I'm not going to be on the corner.
You keep telling me you're not very outgoing, but I see her getting more and more and more involved, which is great.
You guys are rubbing off on me.
See, that's good. We like that.
But, I mean, just saying, you know, standing up.
Right.
And saying, you know, that it's not okay to make fun of that person because of their size or their orientation, regardless if you're big or small. And that's one of the things that we're trying to. And our
NAFA's huge right now in the whole bullying thing, right? Isn't that kind of like NAFA's little bandwagon for the moment?
We have several
bandwagons.
We are very diverse. In bullying is one of the first ones that we're doing locally. It's in Orange County, and we're trying to get it to take off here in Las Vegas. And we're doing in bullying not only for children, which is a very trending thing right now, we're also doing it for adults and workplace. So we're trying to get it out there that in bullying doesn't end, bullying doesn't end when you graduate. It happens at workplaces all the time. It happens when a person goes to the grocery store.
Isn't that crazy? When you stop, I never thought about bullying being on a job or like in a store, but when you stop and think about things that have happened, you go, whoa, that was a case of bullying.
Well, we changed the word when we become adults. It's no longer bullying, it's discrimination. That's the word we use. Or being
aggressive.
Being aggressive
but
or
making our point.
There's this, this mindset that because we're adults that we should overlook it or we should get over it. I hear that a lot. Well, you should get over what that person said. No, I'm not going to get over what that person said because it's hurtful.
But they're going to say it to other people who maybe can't or won't speak up for themselves. So when you speak up, you're speaking up for more than just yourself, right?
One of the biggest things I've said personally is that when you talk to someone, you don't know if your voice is the last voice that person's going to hear.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
And, I'm not saying you have to be PC all the time. I mean, speak your mind. Just be mindful of, other people. They may not believe the same as you. I mean, Lord knows, you've seen me on Facebook, that people come to me and they're like, oh, well, you know, you're a liberal hippie and all this because, you know, I just want to love the world and make everybody be friends with everybody else.
And that's not such a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. I'm like, well, thank you. You know, it's not exactly, you know, insulting me. But, you know, I see a lot of people that accept it like it's commonplace. Like it's, you know, oh, well, somebody said this, whatever the statement may be, that's very hurtful. And it's like, do you realize that that's a very racist statement? I've gotten in a lot of, you know, online fights, you might as well say, because they're like
discussions,
you know, discussions when, you know, people are like, I'm not fill in the blank racist, whatever, when it was like, but that's what you're putting out. Because you're not mindful of what you're putting out. You're not mindful of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you're saying, you know, I hate, you know, all Muslim people because of the 9/11 thing, it was like, but you don't know
all the Muslim people. Yeah, I agree. They blanket statement that stuff.
Blanket statements are very
they're hurtful.
Very hurtful.
And destructive.
Very destructive. I mean,
that's why we have racial profiling in this country, because
and
of
it's
that.
Horrible. I lived in a small town in the South forever, and we had this, they weren't even Middle Eastern, which makes it even worse, but they had been there forever. And when 9/11 happened, they shot up the front of the store.
You know, it's so ridiculous.
And it was like, they didn't do it. You know, like, why? You know,
they're just trying to take care of their families.
They've been happy and, you know, helpful to everybody, you know, since time was time, you might as well say. And just because this happened, you think you knew something about them, and it wasn't even true.
No, I'm with you, sister.
And that could have caused loss of life. For what? Because you didn't want to get the facts.
Because you're ignorant.
Because you're ignorant.
That's it. A lot of people just don't want to get the facts. They don't want to hear the truth. They don't
even want to accept that there may be facts beyond what they understand. That's the other thing. They have their opinion, and that is their opinion, and it is their truth, and there is no changing them, no matter how many facts you lay before them to prove that perhaps maybe your opinion should be tweaked a little.
Right, because they're still stuck in the mud somewhere.
I'm going to tell you right now, I get on a plane with a guy who looks like he walked out of Osama bin Laden's boot camp. I'm going to be a little careful with him. I'm not going to tackle him to the ground when he gets up to take a dump on the airplane.
Yeah, or go change your airline ticket, right?
Right,
I don't care who you are. If you're going to take a dump on the airplane, when we are all in that little cabin, I'm fucking going to jump you regardless of what you look like. Like, that shit's going down. You hold that shit in until we land.
I think
I'm sorry.
I think I've been very blessed in my family. We have a very diverse family. I'm biracial. My son, you can add more to that.
Yeah, you have a rainbow family.
I have a rainbow family.
I love rainbow family.
We have very diverse, beliefs and religions that's in my family. So it's, I grew up very open, and I try to spread that as much as possible because not everybody had that opportunity.
You're right.
They don't know. We are, I would like to say that we do live in the age of internet, and you can go on and do a little bit of research. It does not hurt. It won't rub off. It's not contagious.
Right, exactly.
Find out about your neighbors. Find out about what they're about.
The truth is actually contagious. Once you know it, you can't get rid of it.
Once you know the truth,
it's
not going to kill you. It's not going to kill you, though.
It's fatal to your beliefs.
Yeah. And if you learn something, like, I don't profess to know everything by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm constantly willing to learn. I'm constantly willing to just look at it and be like, okay, what's this about?
Right.
I fight not only for size diversity, which I have a very backwards reason why I do size diversity, which we spoke about, and hopefully we get to touch on that. But I'm for privacy of your sexual orientation. It's just none of my business.
Right.
Nor
should it be the business of an employer.
And I really think it's odd.
Right.
People look at me odd because they're like, well, I'm against, homosexual families or whatever combination of, the way you want to love each other. I'm like, one, love is love.
Love is love.
Two,
I'm sorry, when you're done.
Oh, it was like, two is it's none of my business. Okay, so it's like, it doesn't affect me that you love somebody else over there. It's, and, honestly, if we had that mantra in our mind, like, okay, that's really none of my business over there, we'd get a lot better.
Yeah, we probably would. Unfortunately, people want to make it their business because they don't want anyone to ruin their way of life. But you see, the gay people aren't ruining your way of life. It's not like they're walking in, sticking their dick in your mouth. They're just
why is there such, and why is there such? I mean, it's crazy to me to think somebody says they're gay. Well, automatically that makes them a sex freak. Okay, they're trying to bed everything on the planet. Well, you know what? I'm bisexual and I ain't trying to bed everything.
Some of the biggest prudes I know are gay.
Wait a second, you're trying to bed me.
Well, yeah, because I like you.
Some of the biggest prudes I know are gay. They're like, oh, girl, I'm not getting all up in that.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got to be special.
I just hate that there's that whole thought that because somebody's gay, they're a child molester. There's so many people that think like that. Oh, my God, gay men cannot teach boys gym. You know what?
I think a lot of the mindset comes from also location. Like, for example, I have a friend, I grew up back east, and where I grew up, it's still taking some time to catch up to, say, like Vegas or California or other areas as far as acceptance, you know, plain and simple. And so I see a lot of it. I have a friend there who, you know, people will still come up to him and make comments to him in the store and, you know, about him being gay because they saw a rainbow on his bracelet, and just, I mean, really almost appalling that I can't believe this still happens. And then I tend to forget it's that area where I grew up. It's very, you know, it's very like Catholic. It's very, you have to be this way, you know, and believe in this. And so it's appalling to think that that still happens. Whereas versus here in Las Vegas or elsewhere, I mean, I don't think somebody.
Here in Vegas too.
Well, I realize, but I don't necessarily know if
we're much more open-minded on the West Coast than because I'm from the Detroit area, and there still is in Detroit a dividing line, which is 8 Mile. Everybody talks about 8 Mile, the M&M 8 Mile, but it really, for a long time, and to a certain extent today, was the dividing line between
the cookie and the cream,
the white and the black. I remember when I first learned to drive, my mother saying, "Don't you go south of 8 Mile." Well, guess where my happy ass went? Right south of 8 Mile. Okay? Find me some chocolate, okay?
One of the things we need to remember about all of the mindsets and things like that, we're not going to change these people's minds. What we have to do is we can
hope that they evolve.
We can hope that they evolve, but we have to respect their right to believe what they want as well. Like, I'm not saying it's right that people are racist. I absolutely think it's appalling when somebody walks up to a black man and says, I'm going to shoot you because you're a nigger. Like, that absolutely destroys me inside.
The other person,
right. Exactly. But we have to remember that one of the greatest things about this country is that everybody has the right to believe what they want. We just have to remember that our beliefs cannot infringe on the rights of other people. And that is where the legislature should go. It should be less about oppressing people and more about making it unacceptable socially, financially, politically to act this way.
Right.
So less that, oh, you're going to get a slap on the wrist because you fired that girl because she was too fat for your office, and more like you're going to have to pay higher taxes. Or, if you get accused and prosecuted and convicted of being prejudiced or doing something, there should be a higher consequence than just that guy's a dickhead.
I agree.
But on the same hand, I'm also a big believer that businesses have the right to hire whoever they want. That means from the get-go, you need to hire the people you want. I think they have the right to discriminate from day one, because there will be employers out there who will take the people who are qualified for the positions. The businesses that refuse to take people who are qualified and are only the people they want, those are the businesses that will fail. The businesses that are open and free and allow the people who are skilled,
take the most qualified individual. You're right.
Those are the people who will,
regardless of race, size, color, whatever.
Let these businesses hang themselves rather than trying to force them into doing something. Make it. You become a pariah. Make it more of a societal thing. That guy doesn't hire, black people, so I'm not going to shop there, and that's just the way it should be.
It should be like that, but unfortunately, it's not like that.
But it does come down to, in what you were saying, that everybody has the freedom of speech, and you appreciate that, and that's great. But you also, that doesn't necessarily, while it protects you from not getting arrested for saying these foul things, it doesn't protect you from having repercussions for your words. Exactly. And I also feel that there are certain people who have, who are in a place where their voice does carry a lot more influence than, say, others, that I'm sorry, that they do have, I think, for as much as they have a right to freedom of speech, I think they also have a responsibility to not use their voice as society feels fit, but to just be a little bit more cautious of what words or what actions they choose to use in public.
That's where we go back to taking it local. If this guy is a big loudmouth blowhard talking about how he doesn't hire those raghead eastern desert camel fuckers or whatever he wants to call them, then you know what? Maybe it costs me a little bit more to drive a little bit further, but those of us who disagree with his beliefs shouldn't shop there, shouldn't go there, shouldn't and should tell their friends, be like, you know, that guy says blah blah blah, and if your friends are like, yeah, I don't really care, then that's fine, but you know. Maybe.
That I love that idea, but unfortunately, it's not. It won't happen.
But the more
it happen.
But the more people do it, the more it will happen. If you say it'll never work, and then you don't do it, you will never know if it would work.
And all it has to do is for enough people to do it to make an impact on their day-to-day.
One person tells 3 people. Those 3 people tell 3 people. Those 3 people tell 3 people.
And trying to, you know, to positively impact people can change minds. You know, I feel. I mean, because we can't evolve as people. The more education, the more we're exposed.
It's a slow process, but
it's a very slow process.
But it can be done. You just have to be able to stick to it.
Think about, just as I was saying before, where everybody, you can't change people, and in many cases you really can't, but you can hope that people evolve. Getting in a Facebook fight over it isn't going to make anyone evolve, or, you know, arguing with somebody about their beliefs. We can just hope that they take everything in and evolve. But our own president has evolved, even specifically on his stance regarding gay marriage.
Yep.
Yeah,
from the beginning of when he was
a senator,
voted in, you know, or even prior to now. And he has publicly said, I have evolved. I've listened to all sides. And I have evolved in what my
and that's
thought
good.
is.
We can
and it's okay. And I think that people need to realize that you might have been raised this, you know, this particular way, and had these particular beliefs. But the good thing, and you know, as Americans, you know, hopefully hopefully all over the world, you can educate yourself and weigh the options and make your own decision. Exactly. It's okay to say, you know what, you know, I love you, and I can, you know, and I respect that you have freedom of speech. However, you know, this is how I feel about it.
And I had to do that an awful lot during the Obama campaign. You know what? We're just going to have to agree to disagree on this stuff. You know, my inner self wants to say, would you just listen? Listen to the side. But I got to the point, you know, where like, they have to form their own opinions.
Freaky said in regards to what you were discussing before, that if that idea really worked, nobody would be shopping at Walmart.
Yes, that's true. That's true. There are always going to be that giant entity. They've made themselves, it's a two-way street on that. They've made themselves indispensable to us. People cannot survive without Walmart anymore, because Walmart has the buying power to make their products cheaper. And in our shithole economy that we've had for the last, I'm not going to say 4 years like most people say, in the last 10 years, because I've watched it slide for the last 10 years. Right. It's the only place most people can shop and afford, you know, and because they make it that way.
Biggest boycotts I've seen was about 25 years ago, and I remember because I was married to my ex-husband, and Denny's. It was a thing that was well publicized. Had one of their waiters or waitresses refused to serve a black family, and the manager told the black family to leave. Like, agreed with the waiter. And I don't remember all the details, but I remember like. And I was, you know, every Christian church in America was boycotting Denny's. And Denny's, like, felt the pinch so much it was, like, on the news that Denny's is having a hard time because people are not going to Denny's for dinner, that Denny's came out and did a real public apology. But that was the biggest boycott of what you were talking about, and it was great.
Well, the most recent one was Abercrombie and Fitch.
Oh, that was the best.
They lost so much revenue in a month that they had to come out and publicly apologize and start carrying bigger clothes.
Yeah. Kicking and screaming.
Another example of somebody who, yes, you have your freedom of speech as the CEO of Abercrombie.
Absolutely. Talk about how you don't like ugly people, you fat fucker.
I don't want fat people in my store. He can say it all he wants, but he's just not free from
the repercussions.
The fallout of what American people would do. Yeah.
It is that kind of reaction, the American people's reaction to that we need more of.
The greatest was when somebody went to all the thrift stores and bought all the Abercrombie and Fitch and gave it to all the homeless people.
That is the kind of reaction to things that we need.
Awesome.
Is instead of people bemoaning and standing up and going, "Oh, it's terrible what he said," standing up and actually doing something about it.
It's easy to sit in your house and BS with your friends and be like, I hate fill in the blank here, but that's why I feel activism is so important, because you don't have to be out on that street corner with your picket signs and, raising that fist and everything. But, shopping somewhere else, that's activism.
No, you're absolutely right.
Trying to educate others, that's activism.
You're right.
It's very easy to try and...
Posting a positive thing on Facebook about something going on is activism. Yeah, you can take any kind of part that you want for the things that you want to stand up for.
And it's really quick. Callie Guy said in chat, this is going back to the evolution or evolving, that we have no idea if he evolved as a politician. All you know is that at some point he decided it was his advantage to publicly express a different opinion.
That is true.
It's very true. It's a very good point. However, in him doing so and expressing his opinion, I think, just to share, I think it might have helped others realize that maybe they could express a different opinion and that it was okay to do so.
Right. Yeah.
And to change from a previous opinion to
exactly.
a new
opinion. To change from a previous opinion.
Whether he actually did or not, maybe deep down in his heart, he's like, those goddamn homos are everywhere. I hate those bastards. But he's publicly saying, it's okay to be a homo. I like you that way anyway.
But he used his voice to express it and help evolve.
And so
and help bring about
maybe
change.
he hasn't changed, but he may have opened the door for other people to
he may
express
personally
change.
Joe Biden said to himself when they approached him during the election about abortion, he said, personally, for me, it's against what I believe, but I am not going to shut anybody else down from believing that. And that could be exactly what Barack Obama, it's not for him, it's not something that he...
one of the very large house of cards.
It's okay, but I allow someone to have their own feelings and their own freedom.
It's perfectly acceptable. I don't care what you believe. You can believe about the flying spaghetti monster with pink purple dots, polka hair, and does whatever he wants to do. I just don't want you to tell me that I have to abide by your religious laws because you say it's the only right way to live.
Exactly, I agree.
But we have a very specific agreement in our Constitution, in our articles, and all of that other things, that your religious beliefs are not supposed to be mine. I am allowed to have my own, and you cannot write laws that change my fundamental religious belief.
I agree. And that's why we have the laws that everybody has the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech.
And freedom of religion means freedom of all religion.
That's right.
Yeah, not just you big three fuckers. Some of us out there.
Right. No, it's all religion.
Big three fuckers.
Catholics, Baptists.
No, it's Christians, Jews, Muslims.
Oh, okay, that's how you're doing it.
If you want to believe in the big flying spaghetti monster, you know what?
That's right. That's
all hail the noodly appendage.
Spaghetti monster.
Right. As long as you ain't abusing no chillins, we good. Okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Leave the dogs and the babies alone. We're all right.
And just saying,
but goat sacrifice is okay.
Goat is okay
as long as we eat it afterwards.
And speaking of evolving, we're evolving in the this size diversity. You notice I'm saying size diversity.
Back. That's our job. She brought it back.
Bring it back.
You notice I'm saying size diversity, not necessarily fat acceptance. I believe in fat acceptance. The reason I've evolved my own personal view is because I was telling Sweet Cheeks I got into activism not for myself as a BBW, which some people do. It was because of my mother. My mother has been petite her whole life. She got sick, and she started losing like 2-3 pounds every other day. And so when I took her to the hospital, I was used to what I would get. Oh, you got the sniffles, it's because you need to lose a couple of pounds.
Right.
Oh, you got blurry vision. If you just walk that track and put the fork down, it'd be better. But when I took my mom, who never got sick a day in her life, she only went to the hospital, have her children, they treated her so bad. What do they tell you when you drastically lose weight or drastically gain weight? Something could be the matter with something. Go to the doctor, get it checked out.
Right.
So that's what we did. We took her to the emergency room because, unfortunately, we didn't have health care for everybody at the time. So we did what we could. They had her crying. I've never seen my mother cry, because they had her being a drug addict, an anorexic, a bulimic, an alcoholic before they did the first test.
Because she was so thin.
Because she was so thin.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was out, I had to stand up for her, and I was like, what do you mean? And the doctor had enough nerve to look at me like I was eating the food off her plate. Like, it couldn't be because she had a problem. I was thinking cancer. Thank God it wasn't. I was thinking cancer, because, that's,
eat your body
it eats your body up. And I was like, excuse me, but do you mind doing some tests? You just can't treat somebody that way. But then it opened, I had a moment of clarity. And it was, well, they told me that if I lose a couple of pounds, that magically all my problems are going to go away.
Yeah.
And when my mom went, and she could wear that size 3, you know what I mean? When before she got sick, and she was never been fat her whole life. I was like, but now she's thin. Okay. And she's still, she had, not only did she run into health problems, but then she was getting flack for being too thin. So there isn't a magical number or weight that you can be.
So because size acceptance at both ends of the spectrum.
Because I see it all the time, getting involved in conversations with people that are like, well, curvy women are it, and stuff like that, and I love my curvy women, but I love my thin women too.
Everybody's got their favorite flavor.
They do have their and there's nothing wrong with that, but when it affects someone's health, when it affects their mental well-being, that's where we have to kind of draw the line and be like, hey, she may never go to the doctor again. I mean, fortunately, she has people fighting in her corner, but what if she didn't? She could have walked out of that hospital and didn't get the treatment that she needed.
Well, and I think all of us have had situations where doctors haven't treated us correctly or give us the wrong, because they just assume that we're fat.
Yeah, 2 years ago for me it was, doctor, thank you, come again. Thank you, come again.
With your
lose some weight.
Exactly.
You have eczema on your hands and feet because you're fat. No, I have eczema on my hands and my feet because I have eczema everywhere else too.
Right.
So, doctors can be very ridiculous. You really have to shop around these days because... And I'm going to blame the little flappy-headed fuckshit, Dr. Oz. He's been pushing this idea that obesity is this epidemic. And he's unwilling to see the truth behind it. Is it's not the obesity, it's the American lifestyle that we lead. It's the kind of food we eat. It's the kind of exercise we get. Exercise, going to the gym, lifting weights, and doing things like that, that's all fine and dandy if you want to look pretty. But if you want to be healthy, it has to be daily movement every single day. Not just getting up and going to the refrigerator and getting back down to the chair again. It's, going out and walking for 15 minutes every couple of hours or whatever. It's less about what we're eating and more about the kind of lifestyle we lead, and that goes towards the skinny people too. I worked with a poor girl. This thing never weighed over 100 pounds, and she ate voraciously, and she would eat everything that everyone else was like, I can't eat that, it would make me fat, I'm so jealous. And she's like, you don't understand, I am trying to put on weight because I look like an anorexic 11-year-old boy. I want boobs and butt and
she
hips.
wanted to fill out a little,
Right, because she felt so insecure with herself because she didn't look like a woman, because she wasn't curvy and she didn't have big boobs and she didn't have a bubble butt. And
that's sad, because you know what? she probably was, probably a very beautiful woman.
She was, and her husband
exactly
loved
the way
her.
she was. So I mean, self-love is definitely something that we need to push, because no matter what your shape, your size, you have to love yourself.
Well, and you know what? That self-love comes from from when you're young. I mean, I contribute 100% my confidence in who I am to my parents. I mean, my parents told me I was always a fat kid, and but their message was, you can do anything and be anything you want, no matter what.
Exactly.
So like I said, and so I try to always encourage all children, because I know they don't always get that, from home, or maybe mom and dad are really positive, but grandma's like, oh, if you eat that cookie, you're gonna get fat. I mean, sometimes, so I always try to encourage the kids, like, no, it doesn't matter. So what? So what? You got big feet. Who cares?
Exactly. And, and knowing that everyone's different from everyone else. I mean, I beat myself up so horrible when I was young because, being ethnic, I had hips. I had thicker thighs. I had, I was embarrassed of my breasts. Like, I was 9 years old. Like,
early, yeah.
I it's like, boom, all of a sudden I got like huge boobs. It was like, oh, you got, I got made fun of. I mean, I like them now, but when I was younger, it was like, oh, you got huge boobs, so there's something that you must be a slut. You must be sleeping around.
No. Woo, I got that a lot. I got a lot of boys who thought
10 years old.
Yeah.
Because you had big boobs, they thought you were a slut?
Because I had big boobs, they just automatically assumed I was going to give them a blowjob under the bleachers.
Like
I never, by the way, Nikki never gave a blowjob under the bleachers at school. I'm sure she can't say that.
I never did.
I didn't become a slut till later.
I didn't become a slut till later in life.
Sexually active,
right? And
isn't that insane? And I'm like, I'm 9 and 10 years old. Like, I don't want to hold a boy's hand right now, much less be doing
boys
stuff.
Are gross.
I don't want to. Boys are gross. Ew, like cooties, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I was ostracized because of the size, and the size of my breasts. And when I look back at pictures of when I was younger, that's why I do the Throwback Thursdays so much, because I think it's important to kind of take a look back, take a step back, and say, you know what? No, I wasn't 500 pounds I had imagined in my head, and if you were, that's okay. But it's I had to take a look back and be like, I was okay. I was where I needed to be at that time of my life.
Right, exactly.
And today, at almost 40 years old, I am at what I feel I need to be at this time of my life.
And that's good.
And it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Comfortable in your own skin.
Let's take a break.
Oh, are we going to take our long break, or are we just going to take a little break, come back?
You know what? Let's go to the long break.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, let's just go through to the long break.
We'll keep going and take our little long break at 8:30.
With the doctors, when we've had before, my daughter is very larger for her age. She's much taller than
very
any
tall.
She's much taller.
Well, you and Mr. Toxie are tall. Yeah.
She's and I think she's pushing a little past, but she's 5'4", for her age.
She's already taller than me.
Yeah.
God
she's very tall.
For her age, it's insane. And so, the pediatrician that we found for her was fabulous, because she did not, when we went in there, and of course she's off the charts. She's always been off the charts. Like, from birth, she's been off the charts. And so they, at no point did this pediatrician make her feel like there is something wrong.
That's good.
And they said to her, "Are you active?" And I just kind of smiled and turned my head, and I'm like, "Go ahead, you can discuss it." And so she's like, "Yes, I'm in this sport and this sport and this sport. And when I'm not in sports, I'm on my trampoline, and I do this and I do this." And she's like, "Okay then." And she's like,
"Yeah, you're good.
Stay away from soda." And my daughter's like, "I'm not allowed to have soda." She's like, watch your snack intake, and that's great. Drink some milk.
That happened to my son too. He's very tall. He's like 6'3", if not 6'4", and he's been tall his whole life. And speaking of putting what normal is supposed to be on someone that is outside of those supposed perimeters, they made him feel like there was something wrong with him, like the school or other people, because he was so tall. They thought he should act older. I don't know if
my boy gets that all the time.
We've had that as well. That they've even when she was little, we had somebody who cared for her who's fabulous, a person I love dearly. But she had even once said to me, I realized that I set different expectations for your child because I
thought she was
feel
older.
she's older. She didn't think
I
that.
have
She
a
knew
good
her
friend
age,
of mine whose son was the same way, always been, real tall and big for his age, and to the point, like, she took him to the doctor. He was 2 years old, to an emergency room, a doctor that he had never seen before, and somehow when they were getting ready to give him the medication he needed for his sickness, they were going to give him a shot, the doctor said, so he's 4? And she goes, no, he's 2. The doctor had not looked at the chart and just assumed that his size was 4, and they were going to give him the medication,
like he was
based on that, Well,
but in most cases, at least with my daughter, they've told me to use it based on her weight, not her age, when I'm doing a children's.
Yeah, my kid's much bigger than other kids his own age.
Oh, and he's getting nothing but taller.
Yes, and we do the same thing. Like,
he's going to pass you up very soon.
Probably before he actually hits puberty.
Before he hits junior high, I think he's going to pass you up.
And let me tell you, it's a very scary thing because mine is very close. Very close.
You're going to have to say, will you sit down so I can knock you upside the head?
But this is why I still do her hair, but I can't reach it. So she's like bending back like a contortionist.
Oh, sit on the floor.
Well, we do that too, or like sit on the toilet or something. And finally I'm like, listen, like at this point you've just got to do your own. You are just too tall. But I'm a fairly good height. I'm 5'8".
No, I'm going to tell you how to do something my mother used to do. You know how you have those steps going from your kitchen to your family room? Mm-hmm. She stands on the bottom, you stand at the top.
That makes sense.
There you go.
Yeah,
you've guys seen my son, so I've been looking straight up for a minute. He's a big boy, yeah. When he was in pre-K, the teacher actually came to me. I mean, like, you couldn't shoot these kids out of a can and hurt my son. Right. That's how big he was. Yeah. And it was like, well, the other parents are concerned that their children are going to get hurt by your child because he's so big. I was like, my son is 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and he's already almost up to my chest. I mean, that's how big he was. I was like, if they run into him and bounce off, that's not my problem. He is not a violent person.
Right,
like
they
went into a, oh well, he's violent, he's going to be pushing. No, he's very quiet and very reserved, and and he's very nice. And it was like, you want me to tell my son not to play with other kids? He's 4 years old. He's not going to understand. I can't play with those other children because I'm bigger.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
But that's one of the other programs that we have in NAFA. Nice, like, little segue.
Yeah, it was a good one.
That's size diversity, which is size savvy, is our program that we're also trying to push.
Well, let's talk a little bit while we're there. Size savvy is great because they're putting together a database here in Basin of restaurants that are size savvy, that have bigger doctors' offices that are size savvy. Mm-hmm. Keep going with that.
My orthopedist is super size savvy. I'm going to tell you, some of the chairs he's got in there, I was like, I know some butts that can fill those chairs. They have some big, wide chairs. When you took me to
Southwest Medical that night, they had nice, big, wide chairs,
They do, and I saw it on there. They're listed on your size savvy thing, because I was looking through there, and I noticed that with Southwest Medical that they have regular chairs. They also have chairs without arms. They have big fat chairs.
Yeah, they do. They're great.
And we're encouraging people. We on the website, we have the forms that we prefer everybody to use and can send in. And it's just it makes businesses aware that there are people of all sizes, not only big and thin, but tall, short. It's very important. I mean, someone like me and my aunt was talking about doctor's offices, and, we seem to be on doctor's offices. But having something as simple as a step stool to get onto the exam table.
Exactly. You're so right.
I mean, I don't want you to help me up. I don't want you, I don't want to be, well, not that many people can pick me up, but don't
manhandle me.
Wait a second. They pulled that little thing out? Have you ever stood on that to get on it and the table flips?
Yeah, bolting the table down.
Yes. They don't bolt the tables down, so that's not, that's not
safe.
And then there's no handrails, so like if you're not stable and you're trying to, I'm sorry, I'm 5'7" and my legs are like 3 inches long.
Yeah.
So like even with that little step stool, it's like, okay, I'm still having to climb up onto the exam table. And
no, you're right. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
You know what I noticed? I don't know. I remember back at Olive Garden always had those chairs with the sides on it, and if you needed a chair, you had to ask for them without the sides. I was in an Olive Garden a couple of weeks ago, and they have changed all their chairs, and none of them have arms on them now.
I have to tell you, I always hated the chairs at Olive Garden. Always. I could sit in them, but it was never the most comfortable.
And it was always a big issue when you had to ask for it because they had to
roll
come from the back.
Yeah. Exactly, but you're right.
At least they have the option. A lot of restaurants don't even have the option.
Right. Or their booths aren't wide enough for...
I'll have you to know that when we were ordering new chairs for the studios, I specifically ordered chairs that would go all the way down to regular chair height and come up very tall and had no arms.
I thank you for that, as I'm sitting here nice and low and comfy. Thank you.
Went to a local show, and they put us in, those U benches with, like, the table, and the table's, like, bolted to the floor. Yeah. There was, like, what is this, like, 8, maybe 9 inches between the table and the back of the chair. I'm like,
some of the arenas here in Vegas to sit in is next to impossible for somebody with my hips.
Yeah.
Not even.
I come out with my legs all bruised up trying to squeeze.
I had to ask. I was like, I'm sorry. They thought they were being nice and they were giving us premium seats and everything, and that was awesome. However, even my mother, who's very petite, like, her stomach was over the table.
That is so tight.
I was like, what are you trying to do? Like, you can't turn sideways. You can't move the table. You used to be able to move the tables out at least and get a little bit in. Not at all. I was like, all the way in my hips, biting into my waist.
Vegas needs to be fat friendly, because I don't know if you've all been on the Strip lately. There's some big people that come to Las Vegas, and people in general are bigger. So yeah, I think that Vegas, as they're building new stuff, is becoming a little more fat friendly. That's like, it's a big deal when people like Stu-Bo or Bree find venues for the bashes, because they have to watch and make sure that the restaurant has the right kind of seating, that the casinos there's enough room to get the scooters between the gaming.
That you can get the scooters in the room, and if you can't, you can safely park them in the hallway.
Exactly. So, it's things like that, they always say, like, why is it so hard to find a decent venue, say, for the bash? But it's all of those little things that, how far do people that are walking have to walk to the pool? How, so, like I said, things like the restaurant, exactly what you're saying. Does the restaurant in this casino, can our people come and eat there?
Thankfully, we can say the Tuscany is very fat friendly.
Yes.
And I will tell you that the scooters can make it in the room and up and down the hall.
Yes, they can. Really nicely, huh?
It does. It works.
But it just doesn't stop it being bigger. I mean, if you're elderly, that's a consideration. If you have short legs, that's a consideration. Seriously, if you have arthritis or any health issues, I shouldn't have to plan my route from your front door to wherever I'm going to make sure I might have to stop and sit, or am I going to slip and fall? Can I fit my butt between table A and table B because you're trying to fit 500 people in a 200-person room?
It was a funny thing. I was seeing Eliza yesterday, and let me tell you what she said. What do she said, she made this up, and I got to give her credit because it's kind of cute. What do fat girls like more than cake? A shortcut.
A shortcut.
That is so true, huh? I do like the shortcut.
One of the other things, cake, which is where I thought you were going with that. I'm very hungry right now.
One of the other things that businesses need to take in consideration is not just their physical accommodations, but their informational accommodations. Sweet Cheeks does it all the time. She rolls up to the valet. I need to get here. Where's the closest place to park, or should I just valet? And valet shouldn't be just greedy and say just valet it. They should know, well, the best way for you to go is to go here, park there, walk this way.
And I do have to say that
most of the time,
most of them will. And I'll say, I'm going to room da-da-da-da-da. Is this the closest place for me to park? And some have been very nice. No, hon, you need to go to the other valet and go. And I usually tip them a little. I'm not, they're working. But yeah, usually, so yeah, you know what? Don't be afraid to say that when you go someplace. And those of you that don't know, here in Vegas, valet is a donation. It's like $1. It's not where you go to LA and they charge you $15 a day to park your car in their valet.
Unless you're at Lake Las Vegas, and then it does cost you.
Yeah, but so make sure you ask them. Say, you know what, I'm trying to get to this restaurant in your hotel. What is my shortest walking distance? Don't be afraid to ask them that.
Right.
At all.
The employers need to get the sensitivity training out there, that just deal with them like you would any other customer. Don't snide, don't sneer.
No,
I mean,
right.
do all the guffawing and giggling you want after they walk away. Don't give them
go to the back room.
Go to the back room, get it out.
Accommodate them.
Right, and you know, when we used to do it, when we would take big groups to the Marylands for the crabs, we would call ahead and say, "There's about 25 big fat people coming. Make sure you got all those armless chairs out." And they would, without any without any sort of, you know, problem. I have been to restaurants with larger people where we have to ask for different chairs, and they give you kind of an attitude about it.
Because you can't sit 8 fat people around a table that normally holds 8 regular people and expect them to eat comfortably.
Right.
You better make it for 6 and join another table, so that not that we couldn't squeeze our asses and don't love each other enough to want to sit close enough, but we want to enjoy our meal.
Right.
And when we're cracking crab, baby, it ain't.
I don't want my leg all sweaty against someone else's.
You know, I just recently went to a restaurant, and I went with a group of people who happened to be plus size, and we went in there, and they put 6 of us at a 6 top table, which for, you know, thinner people might have a problem with, and they told me, because I came a little bit late, to sit over in the other table.
No, away from your group.
Away from my group, wouldn't even accommodate me. And I was like, and I stood
I hope
there.
you Yelp reviewed the fuck out of them.
You know, I had
them, didn't you?
I was like, excuse me, but I'm with this group. You need to accommodate me. And I think people need to not be afraid to say, accommodate me.
Don't be afraid that you're fat.
You know what? We're going to take a break. It's time for a
something.
big break. But when we come back, I'm going to have you tell the story of when you first went to your new doctor.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. We're going to be back. We're going to take our little bit longer break. Go grab your popcorn. Go get your beer. Whatever you got to do to enjoy the last half of the show. And Nikki is such a great guest. We're getting such a good conversation. You're going to love her next story. We'll be right back.